Hello, my beautiful bumbles. It's me, the Juliabee. How are you today? Welcome back, or welcome in if you're new. How's cousin Greg? How's he doing? Is he still saying he's gonna start that podcast? Yeah? Yeah, sure, Jan. Okay. Well, let me know when he gets to that. Today, we are wrapping up all the books I read in February, with a couple of exceptions, because I do have some in here that I read in January, because I didn't read a lot in January, but I read a lot in February. I have 23 books to talk about today, which is incredible since February is only a 28th day month. I will be going over them with you in the order that I read them, giving you a quick summary of them, what my thoughts were, and then of course the all-important star rating. And at the end, I will break down how many books I rated with each star. So without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so the first book I read was actually the first book of the year. So this is a book that I read in January, and that is a series that is near and dear to my heart. I read it when I was in middle school, and I never actually finished the entire series. I finished like the first series and then started the sequel series and never continued after that because I basically grew out of it. And that is book one of the Warrior Cat series by Erin Hunter. This series is, again, so near and dear to my heart, and this honestly shaped a good portion of my generation. So this book follows Rusty, who is a house cat who one day leaves his back garden and finds himself in the presence of these wildcats. And the wildcats actually, they've seen him try to hunt and they've been watching him for a while, and they offer him a place amongst their clan. And the clan in question is Thunder Clan, and there are three other clans, which are Shadow Clan, Wind Clan, and River Clan. And basically they're all at war because they're wild cats, but he is offered a place amongst them to become a clan cat, and it follows his journey doing that and kind of, going through what they deal with living as wildcats. This series is I would recommend it for any mid-grade student, of course, but I would also recommend it for anyone who just loves animals, anyone who just wants a cute little read that you just don't really have to think about. Again, like I said, this is so nostalgic for me because it's just fun. I was actually tabbing a little bit because these were some funny, cute moments. I remember my mom buying me this series, and I wasn't really that into it because I was not a cat girl. I was a dog girl. Let's get it right. And so I remember her buying me this series because we had cats growing up and she loved cats. And I finally started it one day because I just didn't have anything else to read, and I just fell in love with this. I would honestly say that these books shaped my entire childhood as far as going then into the role play aspect on role play forums, and then my writing journey. A lot of my first works that I did, my first rough drafts, were centered around a warrior clan-esque thing. And I still feel that this just definitely started and shaped a lot of my writing journeys. Also, I think it goes without saying that I've rated this 5 stars because how could I not? But also, critically, these books are probably 3.5 to 4 stars. They're not revolutionizing the wheel or anything like that. But I do think that coming from a standpoint of I've read these before and I'm reading them as an adult, it just feels weird to not just give them 5 stars because what else am I really gonna grade them on? You know what I'm saying? Highly recommend. And also they're on my TBR, so I will be trying to finish the series this year because my husband so lovingly bought me the first series and then the sequel series. So definitely will be continuing these in between my bigger books. Okay, so the next books we're gonna be talking about are actually books 2 through 10 that I read also in January, but I wanted to include them because they are a part of one series, which is why I didn't do a January wrap up, because I literally only read Warrior Cats and then this series, and that is the Veronica Speedwell series by Deanna Raybourn. I absolutely, unequivocally love this series, and I will say it until I'm blue in the face, this is all Katie Colson's fault, okay? And she knows it. I started the first book in, I want to say the end of 2023, beginning of 2024. Look at this. Look at the tabbing. And I haven't re-tabbed this. I did just go through and do a reread and tabbed a little bit more. This series follows Veronica Speedwell, who is a lepidopterist or a butterfly hunter, and it is set in the 1800s in London. Her aunt dies, she's left all alone, and she plans to go travel the world some more to hunt butterflies. And her house is broken into, and it's discovered that someone is basically after her for reasons that are unknown. There is a baron, the Baron von Stauffenbach, takes her to Revelstoke Templeton Vane, who is a taxidermist for her protection. And then the Baron is murdered, and what ends up happening is they have to go on a journey basically to figure out who murdered him and to like basically clear Veronica's name because Revelstoke thinks that she did. This is fantastic. It's such a good time. I've compared it to like if Wednesday Addams met like Sherlock Holmes. Like those are the vibes that it gives off because Veronica's very feminist, very independent, and Revelstoke is very progressive as well, but he also still has that like chivalrous side. Yeah, there's a little budding romance between them, which makes it a fun time, which is why I have read all freaking 9 of these books. I had originally read the first 5, stopped at 6. So I then at the beginning of January, I read 6 through 9 because this just came out. I was such, I'm not even kidding you, I was such like in the vibe, in the moment with Veronica and Stoker that I didn't want to leave their world, that I just went back to book 1 and read all the way to book 9 again. And it helped that my husband wanted to read them for the first time and wanted to buddy read them. So we did. We buddy read these books. It was such a good time. Though I've rated this series 5 stars in general, like the entire series as a whole is 5 stars. I highly recommend it for everyone. But because some of the books are better than others, I do have like a tier system for how I like them. Editing Julia here, popping in just to say that I gave you my star rating for Veronica Speedwell, but I didn't actually give you the tier rating. So the order goes as follows. It's book 4, book 9, book 1, book 3, book 8, book 7, book 6, book 2, and book 5. There you go. The tier system is as follows. So book 1 is 5 stars. Book 2 is 2 stars. Book 3 is 3.5 stars. Book 4, girl, I would give this 10 stars if I could. Like if you could see, like that's book 4 right there with all of those tabs. Yeah, I would give that 10 stars. Book 5 is honestly my least favorite, and I gave that 2 stars. Probably, and the only reason I gave it 2 stars is because it's not a bad book. I just don't particularly like it. It's so hard to hold these up. So then we've got book 5. Book 6, I gave 3 stars. Book 7, I gave 4 stars. Book 8, I gave 4.5. And then book 9, I gave 5 stars. I love them for the romance aspect. You either go into this series loving them for the romance or the mystery. A lot of people love them for the romance and not the mystery, but there are a couple books, 1, 4, and 9, especially loving them for both the romance and the mystery. So just please read this series because I need Deanna Raybourn to continue writing these. Because she is writing book 10 right now, but like look how invested I am. Okay. I need her to keep writing this series because it is so good. Like me loving something that isn't smutty and isn't like just magical. Like I'm actually loving a historical mystery series. Who is she? Who is she? Like, I don't know her, but I love them and I must tell everyone about them. All right, and the next book is book number 11, which is Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros. Listen, there's already a vlog out for this, so I'm not going to bring the negativity into this chat, but I only rated this 2 stars, and I explain why in depth in my vlog, but basically this was such a disappointing entry into the Empyrean series. I did not like it. It was very, not even that it was boring, it just was a lot of political filler and a lot of like back and forth between Xaden and Violet and just not a lot of good character development. Like, Rebecca Yarros just kind of like gaslit everyone into believing that we had already known about the things in this book, and we did not. We did not. If you don't know what this series is, then I am to believe that you are living under a literal rock, or you just have been away from the reading sphere for a long time. Just know it's dragons and fantasy. And honestly, for some people, this would be a really good time. I really wanted to love it, but I just didn't. And again, it just needs no further explanation. The next book I read, I do not own physically. So I read it on my Kindle and listened to it a little bit in my audiobook. And that is I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. And y'all, I did a vlog this book along with a couple other books in my first weekly reading vlog of the year, which I'm very proud of. Please go check it out. But anyway, it is basically a psychological dystopian thriller horror novel about a girl who is imprisoned. She's imprisoned with 39 other women, and none of them know how they got there. None of them know what has happened. None of them know why they're there, and none of them know why they can't leave. They know nothing about their captors. Their captors do not speak to them, and their captors do not allow them to touch one another or cry. To keep them in line, they do use whips, but they don't use any other physical force. They don't take them anywhere. They don't abuse them. They don't assault them, anything like that. They're just there, left. They are fed. They're given things to make clothes, but that's about it. That's all they know. An unexpected event occurs one day where a siren goes off and the cage is opened. And these women are allowed to leave. But when they leave, they discover that they have no idea where they are and that their captors have mysteriously just poofed, disappeared. Follow this protagonist, this girl, for the rest of her life as they navigate this world to try to figure out what happened and why they're a part of it. And when I tell you that this book gives no illusions, that it is dark, that it is depressing, that it's not happy and not going to give you any happy, that it's not going to leave you feeling fulfilled, it does not move away from that. It definitely stays on that same trend, and because you are sitting here gaslighting yourself for that happy ending, you'll be sorely disappointed. I loved the book so much. I really was the reason I even picked it up was because I really wanted to read more literary fiction and more just like contemporary fiction, just more things to make me think, because I always joke that I'm not an intellectual girly. But there are some times where I'm like, you know what? I just want to really like sink my teeth into something, sit and ponder, like I don't really want like a trashy good time. I want like a thoughtful good time. You know what I'm saying? This book, I didn't have any expectations going into this book, but I had been reliably told that it was good. It explores such like themes of isolation and humanity and the struggle to find purpose. It's kind of interesting. I was kind of into it. So I did really love it. The book does not have chapters per se. It's basically just one chapter. So just keep that in mind, that if you're like someone who really cares about like chapter length, there is no chapters. There are like page breaks, but like there are no actual chapters. The writing style was definitely very engaging. I thought the prose was stunning and beautiful in a way that I don't want to spoil it, but the protagonist is written in such a way that she is basically illiterate, because how would she have any literacy? She's had no schooling and no teaching. What was really fascinating to me, and I talk about this in my vlog, is that you grow up with her and you see her logic things out for herself without really needing to be told. And it's just this, again, fascinating human study of what would you be like if you had never known men, if you had never known society or that kind of pressure to conform or be a certain way. So yeah, I gave it 5 stars because yes. And I highly recommend it to just anyone that wants to have a really disturbing mindfuck. All right, book 13 that I read for February was a doozy, and it is My Husband by Maud Ventura. If you saw, again, this was also part of my weekly reading vlog. If you saw this, you saw me reading the ending. Oh boy, I've not had a chance to annotate this, but it is stunning. So this book is a psychological domestic thriller about a woman, a housewife, who I'm gonna say like she's got something going on, baby. She's got some issues to work out. So on the surface, this protagonist, she's like got an idyllic marriage, right? She's like perfect housewife, perfect mom, mom of the year, best employee at her job. They live a comfortable life. Everything is as it should be and in its place. But underneath, oh baby, this woman has what I would say is like pathological devotion. She has definitely some severe mental health disorders, okay? She tracks, every move that her husband makes. She analyzes every word, every gesture, every like the tone in his voice, okay? And picks it apart and tries to understand like, okay, how can I keep him and how can I make him never leave me? Girl. And what ends up happening is that she likes to test her husband. She likes to have these little secret tests to see how devoted he also is to her. And as this like obsession kind of deepens and the tests, get more and more intense, the more twists and turns happen in the book and more reveals happen, where you're just like, once you get to the ending, I'm gonna tell you, this book is like an unsettling exploration of love and control and like the fine line between devotion and madness that I loved. Like, there were moments in this book, because this woman, how dare she? Also, how dare this woman be a Virgo? Because I'm a Virgo sun. And I was looking at this woman and then looking at myself and just going like, yikes. But yes, I had no expectations going into this book except that I had heard about it from some other YouTubers and I was really intrigued. And when I tell you that this is probably going on one of my best books of the year, like after closing this book, I was like, oh yeah, best books of the year, new favorite, must buy. Purchased it immediately because I was so cooped and gagged. And I'm still thinking about this book even now. Like I was driving home yesterday and I was like, damn, that really happened. Like, it was just so good. So highly recommend. If you liked Verity, so this is the thing. When I read Verity, I was such like, after I read that book, I needed something like this afterward because it's the same type of vibe. And I'm like, girl. So if you really love Verity and you need something like better, even, because like we all know Coho, whatever. But if you want something even better, pick her up, my husband, by Mad Ventura. All right, to the next book. Book 14 is another book that I do not own physically, but it is on its way to me physically, is Ripe by Sarah Rose Etter. This book, how do I explain this book? Ripe is a dark, introspective novel that follows Cassie, who is a woman trapped in a high pressure world of corporate America, basically. So Cassie works in the tech industry, and on the surface, she's got it all, right? She's got an impressive job, she's got financial stability, she's got a wonderful like house, probably a good car, she lives in the city, she's climbing the ladders to success, American dream. No, she's crumbling on the inside. Cassie is literally a crumbling little ruin. She is haunted by a black hole, which is mentioned many times throughout the book, that literally follows her around her day-to-day life as she grapples with her day-to-day life and keeping up with her career. There's a lot on Cassie's shoulders. She has to deal with corporate greed. She's got to deal with loneliness. She has to deal with the crushing weight of modern capitalism like the rest of us do. There's a lot on her shoulders, not to mention a lot on her shoulders as far as like a generational standpoint, like generational trauma on top of her. She's basically depressed, which is what I'm going to say the black hole was alluding to. And so as Cassie's navigating this toxic work environment and this toxic world culture, we'll just say, she is also battling a unexpected pregnancy. She has to kind of confront the reality of her choices, confront what it truly means to live in a world that asks for so much more than it gives. This is the thing about this book that I struggled with, but also really loved. I rated this book 5 stars on Goodreads because the content of the book was phenomenal. Discussing America and its corporate greed, especially in whatever side you're on, it doesn't matter. Just discussing the corporate greed, the capitalism, the economy in this book was such like we just need more of that. And it talked about a lot of poignant things about when you work in a corporate culture, what that's like, and how you are expected to give so much more than the company is going to give back to you. I loved the book and what it was trying to do so much, but I ended up rating it critically 3 stars because we spent a lot of time talking about a black hole. And I'm gonna be honest with you, it was a little much. It was a lot. I get that what the black hole was trying to symbolize, don't get me wrong, but it was just so much. It was almost kind of like The Office was like, hey, did you see that symbolism that I talked about like 5 minutes ago? Did you see it? Did you see it? Well, I'm gonna show it to you again. I just actually finished a book, which will be a part of this video, that did symbolism so well that it's such a jarring contrast when I compare the two. Even though they're two different styles of media and two different genres, it's one thing to do poetry and prose one way and like do it very subtly and still get your message across instead of beating someone over the head with it over and over again. Well, I gave it critically 3 stars, but I do think that the book itself is a 5-star read, and it's a very important read, and I want people to read it. So I highly recommend at least trying it out. It does talk about some really heavy but good, bad, good in the sense of it talks about topics that we need to talk about, but bad topics that just shouldn't exist. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense? Anyway, Ripe by Sarah Rosetter. Okay, so now books 15 through 18. I own 2 of these books, and the other 2 I do not own because I didn't like them that much. But I do love these 2 books that I'm about to talk about, and that is The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. I freaking love this series. This is a psychological thriller quartet, I guess we'll say, following Millie Calloway, who in the first book applies to be a housemaid for this really, really rich family. She works for the family, and the wife is a little cuckoo pants. She's a little fucking cray-cray, you know what I'm saying? There's like a moment where Millie goes to make the little girl a peanut butter sandwich, and the little girl says that she's allergic to peanut butter. And Millie's like, oh, well, your mom didn't tell me that. The mom is like, yeah, Millie, I know I fucking told you that. But then later, the dad's like, she's not allergic to peanut butter.
That's a red flag.
What? I loved it. It was such, I hate to keep comparing it to Verity, but it was definitely like, I needed to also read this after Verity. And then we have the second book, still following Millie, which I was a little, I'm going to be honest, I was a little skeptical going into this because I was like, I don't know how I'm going to feel about a thriller sequel following the same protagonist when like the protagonist should have had like a happy ending, you know what I'm saying? I don't know if I can really talk too much about this book without spoiling this book. So what I'll just say is that it does follow the same protagonist. I actually originally thought it followed a different one too, but I love them. I loved both of them. There is a novella as well, and then a third book. I liked them. So book 1, I gave 5 stars. Book 2, I gave 5 stars. The novella, I gave 3 stars, mainly because I didn't really know how to rate the novella because it's a novella, but I gave it 3 stars. And then book 3, I gave 3 stars. We really should have just stopped after this one. Honestly, we should have just stopped after this one, but we really should have stopped after this one. Like we didn't need the other 2. We just did not. But they are good for a good time, and I loved them for that. So give them a try. We have come to book number 19, which if you saw the reading vlog, you'll know that I had to go out after listening to this book at my desk at work and buy the physical copy because I was having that good of a time. They Never Learn by Lane Fargo. This book ruined me, destroyed me, emotionally fucking catapulted me into the sun. Absolutely loved this book. So this book is a very dark and twisty thriller that follows Scarlett Clark, who is a brilliant, if not ruthless, English teacher, or English professor, I should say, at a college. She's got a little bit of a deadly secret. Every year, she goes out and she carefully selects and murders a terrible man who's gotten away with a horrible crime against women. Picking up what I'm putting down? Okay. So we start the book with her murdering a student who had been a part of a gang of a young girl.
It's fucking disgusting.
So she really sees herself as kind of like one of the Avengers, okay? She's out here giving justice. She's smoting justice's sword, okay? Meanwhile, we also follow Carly Schiller, who is a shy, introverted she's a college freshman, and she's trying to navigate her first year at college and living away from home. And it's kind of implied that she doesn't really have a good home life. Her dad seems to be very not only absent, but also abusive. And at one point, her roommate, who she's become really good friends with, is assaulted. And Carly takes it upon herself to help her roommate and try to see justice served for her. And her roommate is just really not into that, and she's just not wanting to pursue that. And so it kind of follows that whole debacle as well. So we're following both of these women, and As their paths kind of cross throughout the book and things start to heat up, shall we say, that the plot twist in the middle of this book is actually why I went out and bought this little dinky pocketbook copy of this book, because I had to have it. So I was listening to this book at my desk and I was paying attention, but not really paying attention because I was working. When the plot twist happened, I thought I was reading an entirely fucking different book. I was like, what happened? So I went out and bought the book, restarted the book from the beginning, and read it all in one sitting because I had to freaking know what the hell was happening. This book explores how sometimes it is all men. Okay. Not only are most of the girls on this campus hunted, or not hunted, but they are preyed upon by not only their peers, but their professors, is revolting. But it explores that, and it explores the steps that women have to go through to be believed and to see any sort of justice done or any sort of action taken to protect them. And that just doesn't seem to happen. Imagine that. I do believe that this book was phenomenal. I think it was exquisitely written. I think that the message was great. I did have a little bit of an issue near the end because though I consider myself a big feminist, there are parts of me that I just don't believe that it is all men. Okay? Does that make sense? Like, it's all men, but it's not all men. Okay? I think that we really do a disservice to us as women, us as a collective, when we say things like that, because it isn't. And when we do say that, it negates the good that some men have done for us and how men do try to help us. Okay? I hate to be that bitch that's like, it's not all men, but it's really not. And that this book would have like benefited so well if it hadn't have tried to push the narrative so far that way. But I still fucking love this book. And like, again, I'm over here like, nah, it's all men, fam. It's all men. Fantastic, phenomenal. Please read this book. Oh my God, this book, it's so dinky, but it's become my Bible. I have not annotated it yet. But the annotations that I have on my Kindle edition and then in my audiobook, they will be added because I will be rereading this book. Okay, book number 20 is a book I also do not own physically. I read it and listened to it on audio, and that is Strange Sally Diamond by Liz Nugent. You had me, okay? You had me in the first half, and then you lost me. It's a psychological thriller who follows Sally Diamond, where one day her father passes away, and her father has always told her, like, hey, when I die, just put me out with the trash. So what does she do? She puts him with the trash, fam. She puts him with the trash. It is described that Sally is different. It is said many times with the book, like explicitly, that she's not autistic, but there is an aspect where it's like she shows autistic tendencies. She's basically on a spectrum, but whether or not it's the autistic spectrum, I can't really say, and I will not say. It follows her as the authorities discover that she has thrown her father away in the trash. And you can imagine that the story of this is sensationalized nationwide, Ireland-wide, in the US probably, like, it is okay? And it's like modern day. It's not like it's in the 80s or anything. It's modern day. Yeah. As the authorities start to dig into her past because of the story and everything else, her father left her like packets of letters. And he said to her, do not read these all in one go. You need to read these one a week. And of course, Sally does this. Her doctor, her primary care doctor that she does kind of like, has read all of the letters and now knows all of the secrets of Sally and her past. Following Sally as she discovers these secrets about her past and where she comes from, because it is said that she is adopted. It's a gripping exploration, I will give it that, of trauma, of identity, and the dark truths that kind of shape up our being. And it's kind of a study of nature versus nurture. But there is a POV shift like halfway through the book where I would argue that that's where Sally's story needed to end and where this plot thread picked up. The POV shift, I fucking hated, loathed with every fiber of my being. And then I actually found myself hating and loathing Sally. It kind of had Tender is the Flesh vibes, I'm gonna be honest. Now that I sit here, that's just a thought that just popped in my head. It had Tender is the Flesh vibes for the POV change. If you've read Tender is the Flesh and this book, let me know in the comments, because you picking up where I'm putting down? Anyway, I would have given this book 5 stars if not for that. So I ended up giving it 3 out of 5 stars. The writing was okay. It was fine. Like I said, I felt myself really kind of being like, oh yeah, my sister and my husband kind of act like this. Though they are on the spectrum and Sally had said is not, it still like had some correlation and I liked that. Other than that, I mean, it was good. It was really good. I was angry at some parts. Like I just, yeah. Strange Sally Diamond. Okay, book number 21 is a book that I kind of surprised myself with because I was not intending to read it and I just picked it up on a whim because I hate myself, maybe. That is Scythe and Sparrow by Bryn Weaver, the 3rd installment in the what is it called? The 3rd book in the Ruinous Love trilogy. Here's the thing, y'all know how much I loved Butcher and Blackbird, that I have the special edition on my shelf, and how much I loathed Leather and Lark. So coming into this book, I had very low expectations because Rose and Fion's story from the beginning in Butcher and Blackbird, them as characters, I was not interested in. I didn't care about this little circus freak girl, and I did not care about this do-goody little doctor. Okay, didn't give a fuck. And when I tell you that I was sorely surprised that I rated this book 5 stars.
What a sexy surprise.
Who the fuck is she? So, like I said, when I first started the book, I just had very low expectations and I was not expecting much. But this book follows Rose and Fionn, and Rose is a part of the circus. It starts before the events of Butcher and Blackbird. She's a vigilante who goes and helps oppressed and abused women kind of get rid of their abuse or oppressees. I'm saying, you know what I'm saying? Abusers and oppressors, not abusees. What the fuck? She goes to do that and gets sorely hurt, and that's how her leg gets fucking busted up. Listen, you're not really here for the plot, you're here for the romance part, and just when I tell you that I was so surprised by this book, I was so shocked. Yeah, I gave this 5 stars. I loved this romance so much more than Lachlan and Lark's, and I was really rooting for Lachlan and Lark. And I would actually argue I think I love Scythe and Sparrow more than Butcher and Blackbird. So that's the tea in the shade about that. I go into these books thinking that they are a serious serial killer good time, okay? Do not go into these thinking that they're like so mature and serious and like thought out and like, no. Bryn Weaver explicitly states in every book that they are just a campy, funny, fucking good time. And that it's supposed to be funny and that it's supposed to be fucking ridiculous. And a lot of people seem to like forget that. A lot of people criticize her writing and like how stupid they are. And I'm like, they're supposed to be stupid. Like, it's fine if you want to criticize them for other things, because I criticize Leather and Lark heavily, you know. For criticizing them for being goofy when she has said explicitly that they're goofy is hilarious to me. Like, going into it, know that you will never like cookies and cream ice cream again. You'll never like pizza again. And you will never like, what was it in this book? You will not like cotton candy again. Or rice. Just saying. Also, I'm going to say I would highly recommend the audiobooks because the voice actors for these books are phenomenal. I know some people don't like them, especially because they act out a lot of their actions and their sighs and their moans, which I personally love, but I know it's not a lot of people's cup of tea. So just know that going in, that the actors themselves really try to act out their parts, which I find phenomenal and I really love. So highly recommend the audio. All right, darlings, we are in the home stretch. Book number 22 is a book that really surprised me. Is a book that I really, really stepped out of my comfort zone to read. And I'm shocked that I loved it so much. And I now forever want to delve more into this type of writing and culture. That is Water Moon by Samantha Soto Yambao. Listen, this book took me by so much surprise. This book is a dive into Japanese culture that I'm usually not a fan of. Like, I'm normally not into books like this. I don't even know why I picked this up. I'm gonna be very honest with you. I think it was something about the cover, and then I heard like some people talking about it, and I was like, okay, you know what? Bet. I'm going to give it a shot because I've got nothing better to do. So this is a magical realism book that is set in Japan that follows Hana Ishikawa, who inherits her family's magical pawn shop. And it's a place where the lost souls can trade their deepest regrets. And on her first day as the owner, she wakes up and the pawn shop is destroyed and her father is missing. And she's like, oh, fuck. Because in this world, the pawn shop itself can only be seen or found by people who need to find it. And so it's behind a ramen shop. So you can go through this door and either you'll enter into the ramen shop because you don't need the pawn shop, or you will enter into the pawn shop. And so when she discovers that the store is ransacked and that her father is missing, she realizes that a precious item has been stolen from the vault, which is one of the regrets. And when she goes to open the door to the outside world, because in their world, if one of their kind goes outside the door, they will cease to exist. A young man named Keishin comes into the shop looking for the ramen place and finds Hannah. And basically, because she is like disheveled and she's upset, Keishin is a doctor or like a physicist or something like that, but he agrees to help her. And they embark on this just magical journey. It's through alternate realms, they're riding paper cranes, they're exploring night markets in the clouds, and all to uncover her father's disappearance. It's described as like equivalent to a Studio Ghibli movie, which I have never seen. I've never seen any Studio Ghibli film. I was so entranced by this world. This was so stunningly written. I did start to annotate a little bit, and because I had like my audio edition and my Kindle edition, I was annotating more in those. But I want to reread this because it definitely transports you into this world and you're in it. I will say that I found this book so hard to put down when I was reading it, but when I did have to put it down, it was so hard for me to pick it back up because it was so dense. The writing is very lush, it's very poetic, it's stunning, but it's sometimes hard to follow. And because the writing style is very interesting, I don't really know how to explain it well. It sometimes will cut off very abruptly and then start like a new paragraph. And so you've really got to follow what is happening. So you really have to be paying attention. But I loved this. I loved Hannah. I loved Keishin. I was kind of like, okay, this is going to be a little YA good time.
Honey, you've got a big storm coming.
Y'all, there were some steamy scenes in this book, and I was here for it. Plus the yearning, like, someone get this woman in contact with all of the authors of this age to describe to them yearning, because this author did it phenomenally. I went into this with low expectations, and I rated it 5 stars, and it's going to be on my best books of the year because I loved it that much. Are you joking me right now? Okay, and here we are at the finale of this video. Hopefully I can keep this video under an hour long. I don't have high hopes for that because all of my vlogs are over an hour, and it's honestly annoying, probably to you and to me, the editor. So the last book that I finished this month, literally on February 28th, was Don't Let the Forest In by CJ Drews. When I tell you, this is literally, if this is not my best book of the year, then something is severely wrong with me. This book was utterly, absolutely, unequivocally fascinating. This book is a very dark, atmospheric horror and psychological thriller novel. This centers on a high school senior named Andrew Perot and Thomas Rye, as they navigate their last year of high school. Andrew finds solace writing dark, gritty, gruesome fairy tales, and Thomas really likes to draw those and bring those fairy tales to life. These two have been together with Andrew's sister Dove since they were 12 years old in the beginning of their freshman year at Wickford Academy. And upon entering their senior year, Andrew notices some pretty alarming changes with Thomas. He's kind of like, there's something really different with you. Along with his sister Dove, he's really like, there's something really off with the two of these. And he's starting to think like maybe there's kind of like a romantic thing going between them, which would absolutely destroy this boy. And not only does he notice the behavioral changes, but Thomas's parents have mysteriously disappeared and he's being investigated for their disappearance. And this year at the academy, the forest is off limits. Andrew is so like upset at Thomas and like how distant he's being and how his sister's kind of abandoned him because it's like his twin sister. He follows Thomas into the woods and he sees Thomas fighting this nightmarish, gruesome monster. And he realizes that Thomas's drawings have been coming to life. And if he doesn't attack the monsters every night at the outside of school, they will come into the school. This is totally, and I love it, this is totally a Draco Harry Potter fanfic. And Dove is just Hermione. Fucking love that. Wickford is Hogwarts and it's like their first year where the Forbidden Forest is off limits. Love that so very much. Oh my god. I also felt like there was a moment where I was recently watching Lord of the Rings again for like the bajillionth time. And I also had like Frodo and Samwise Gamgee vibes for some of these scenes. And I was like, oh yeah, we love to see it. I also loved the asexual representation that's in this book for the main character. That was phenomenally done. Let's just talk about the writing itself because that is what makes this book set apart from any book. So we'll go back to Ripe by Sarah Rose Etter that I was talking about earlier. This is how you do prose, poetry, imagery. This is how you do subtle hints so well in books. Because this book is a psychological thriller, there are many moments where you're like, is this all in Andrew's head? Like you're really questioning a lot of things that are going on in this book. And I'm going to tell you right now that when you get to the ending, are those questions answered? Maybe. Maybe not. Maybe. But maybe not. I loved this so much because it also talks about like the connection between someone who is asexual with someone who is not. But not only that, it explores a love that you just don't see that often, which you really shouldn't see that often, but it's such an obsessive love where these boys are willing to destroy themselves and each other for this love to work. And it was just so utterly fascinating, so utterly gay, so utterly just, horrific and grotesque. And there are images of the creatures in this book that have been drawn, which I really appreciated because trying to picture these creatures in my head, I was like, oh, this author deserves every award under the sun. I have never read a book so exquisite. I haven't. Andrew suffers from panic attacks and anxiety. And this book does suspense to the point where you literally feel like you're sitting on a needle. And I suffer from anxiety and panic attacks. And I was listening to this audibly, which was fine. When I started reading it, because I will say the pacing is fine. It's really well done, but it's slow. And it's slow because it's building the suspense. Like it's a good slow. Does that make sense? Like it's really preparing you for what's going to come. And it doesn't rush you and it doesn't give you that relief. I actually, no joke, was on the verge of a panic attack reading this book. I felt myself really like, oh fuck. Like I couldn't breathe at one point. I was so like, I was feeling his emotions and it was so weird. I've never had that reaction before reading a book ever in my life. So just please be aware of that. I did keep reading, but I did switch back to audio because to me, reading at 1.9 the speed, yes, I do that. Reading at 1.9 the speed, that helped because the narrator was going so quickly, obviously, that I didn't feel that like slow dripping suspense of the book. Does that make sense? So please be aware that if you do suffer from those things, that this book probably will actually give you a panic attack and not intentionally, but that's how good this fucking book is written. Like, oh my God, please read this book because I want to talk about it with people. Like look at that. Absolutely fucking stunning. All right, so we've gone through all of the books. So it looks like at this point, looking at all the reads for the month, this is how the ratings broke down. So I had 12 books that I rated 5 stars. Like these are the ones that I'd be screaming to the void with joy. Will I ever have that again? Probably not. I rated 2 books 4 stars. Love them, but they didn't quite like steal my soul out of my body. You know what I'm saying? I had 6 books that I rated 3 stars because they were fine. You know, we coexist. No regrets, but no fireworks either. And then I had 3 books that I rated 2 stars. Choices were made. I don't know if they were good ones, but they were made. And then I had 0 books that I rated 1 star, which honestly, I love. I love that for me because I'm gonna be honest, Onyx Storm was almost a 1 star, but I gave her 2 stars. Why did I give her 2 stars? I don't even fucking know. And that's my February roundup. That is the that is all the books that I read in January and February. Some highs, some lows, a lot of emotions, a lot of screaming, crying, gagging, throwing up. Let me know in the comments which book sounds most interesting to you. Let me know if you've read any of these books already. I would really love to know that. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really enjoyed this month. I'm very proud of myself as well, because this is the first month fully on BookTube and we've almost hit 100 subscribers. I'm so absolutely like in shock. I'm so grateful. I'm just like I'm so happy about that. So thank you so much. If you want to follow me on any other platform, I am on Instagram at thejuliabee, and I am on Goodreads at thejuliabee as well. And don't forget to like the video. If you want to see more videos from me, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. I'll be here all week, baby. I love you guys so much. Mwah. Bye.